This person is sick and tired of the terrible way their boss runs the grocery store, so they decide to get some revenge involving a mystery shopper. But what crazy reasons does the boss come up with to cover his actions? While working in a theater, this worker encounters a family of entitled people. They continue to demand the worker fix a local attraction and won't let up, even when the manager gets involved. What unreasonable expectations does this family hold? You'll only find out by watching this episode of VoiceyHere's Entitled Parents featuring ProRevenge. This story was called The Bad Grocery Place. I've written before about the good grocery store where I worked in high school. We had a couple of bad customers and a lot of senile seniors, but it was well run with a great manager. The one I worked at for one summer in college was The Bad Place. It was 1994 in a chain grocery store with a truly awful manager who was straight out of business school. He was also the regional office director's son, so he was Teflon. Anything that went wrong got pinned on an assistant manager and/or hushed up at the regional level. Awful had managed to install his mistress as one of the assistant managers. I only saw her in the store twice, and both times she was shopping. One of the times she didn't even pay. Awful paid no attention to people's time constraints. We had a bunch of teenagers there who were attending summer school. He didn't care. He scheduled however he wanted and left us to swap shifts amongst ourselves. I personally saw him tell one girl she'd have to miss school because he needed her on a shift and she couldn't find coverage. Crazy illegal. He didn't care about legalities. Awful's belief was that if the computer would accept it, then it was fine. It was the early days of computerized payroll, so the system would take literally anything with no checks. He made the teenagers work hours they legally couldn't. I'm talking too late, too early, and lots of overtime. If they complained, he threatened to fire them. That was his answer to everything. And work wasn't easy to come by in that area. There were teenagers in tears because he wouldn't let them take time for family vacations, or they were being forced to miss tests at school. One guy was fired because he went to his sister's wedding. He'd warned Awful about it months in advance, and it was a holiday weekend, so nobody could swap. Awful was very rarely, if ever, in the store his entire shift. He'd clock in, get the few really important things done, then leave. He'd come back in the middle of his shift to do the bank deposits, then be gone again until it was time to clock out. He assigned all his work to the latest Fall Guy assistant manager, or other random employees. If he was the only manager on duty, he'd leave his badge for overrides on the desk in the office, so we could grab it when needed to override register errors. All of this was massively against company policy. I mentioned in a previous post how National was pretty obsessed with mystery shopper reports, and got them directly from the company that did that stuff. We'd get all kind of conflicting instructions because National's edict based on those and our regional director's policy would differ. Always fun. What I didn't mention was mystery shoppers were trivial to spot. They'd go straight to the bakery to price out a special order cake, then not buy it, complain about the price or ask any of the normal questions. They also went to the bathroom, the fish counter, asked for a price check, and made us unring something they decided they didn't want during checkout. There were other things on the list, but those are the obvious ones I remember all these years later. My last week at this crap show before I headed back to college, I spotted a blatant mystery shopper complete with the notepad. Awful had bugged out shortly after open. The mistress was probably busy with him. The other assistant manager had been fired for the last colossal screw-up, and the only other cashier on shift was at lunch. It was pretty dead as it was late morning, so no big deal. Except that I decided it was time for this crap show to get reported for what it was. When Mystery came up with her price check item, I forgot to hit the price check button and rang it up for real. Whoops. Time to go get the manager's override badge. I overrode it. Then I tossed that bad boy so hard it went all the way across the manager's desk and down into the sea of cables behind it in the corner. Whoops. I'm quite sure that if you went to the tapes, this looked incredibly intentional. It was my last week. You could count the Fs I gave on no hands. Somewhere around this time, the other cashier, we'll call her Jenny, got back from her lunch break, and I informed her that stuff was about to get real. She might want to go home sick if she wanted some cover. Nah. Jenny giggled and wanted a front row seat. Besides, the lunch rush was coming. We had a construction area nearby, and a lot of the guys came from the prepped foods for a cheap hot lunch. We started to get the lunch rush and more of a crowd by the time Mystery made it up to my register to check out. Of course, she needed me to unring something for her checklist, so I flipped on the Help Me Obi-Wan light. Nothing happened. I called for Awful over the intercom by manager first name last name. Jenny caught on real fast and told me to just go get the badge from the office. Awful first name last name must be doing the money drop or something. I pointed out to Jenny that it was against company policy. She rolled her eyes and told me that's what Awful had said to do. Now, where was that override badge? I headed up to the office and made a good show of looking for it. Called down to Jenny asking if she had it. Nope. Jenny abandoned the big order she was ringing up and came up to the little office to give a cursory look around. This is where the whole story took a turn I hadn't gamed out. See, I was just going to give Mystery a very bad visit with many violations to report. There'd have been an embarrassing ream from National and possibly even an investigation. Jenny had other plans. Jenny was going nuclear. Jenny apologized to the mystery shopper, but she was going to have to get in Jenny's line now. I couldn't void the transaction or log to 2 registers at once, so I was going to help her pack it up and Jenny would get to mysteries as soon as she could. Now this is somewhat bullcrap. While true as stated, we all knew how to unplug the registers to get them to reset and log us out. It was a dumb hack, but it worked. Thing was, there was almost zero chance Awful or Mystery knew that. Mystery must have loved her mystery shopping gig because she was the most cheerfully screwed over customer you ever did see. She smiled, assured us everything was fine, and scribbled in her notebook the whole time. Literally while I'm loading up Mystery's cart at my register, Jenny accidentally rang up a gallon of milk about 6 times. Whoops. No override card, no manager, no head cashier with any powers either. Cost-saving cuts there that Awful made early in his days before I arrived. We apologized profusely to the customers, but explained we had no idea where Awful was, offered to check in the back, sent a bagger out to check in the lot in case Awful was on a smoke break. No joy. As this fiasco rolled on, we had a lot of very unhappy customers on our hands, and a downright giddy Mystery who stayed to the bitter end. We were demanded to call a manager. We tried all Awful's no numbers. Who's above him? Oh, that's Regional. We were not allowed to call them. Very strict instructions, true and very against company policy, from manager first name last name, but we can give you their number. Phone's right over there. Many took advantage. We also got yelled at a lot, but in spite of some sympathy for the customers, we were loving every second of it. Regional took about 2 hours to get somebody down to the store who could clear the registers. Nobody else in the store had permissions on that system. Awful still hadn't shown up. Regional dude overrode the registers, but by then the damage was done. We'd missed the whole lunch rush. No hot food was sold. Our metrics for the day were going to be unbelievably bad. Regional dude was on the phone frantically trying to figure out how to cover this mess up for his boss, Awful's father, and decided to blame it on a computer outage. I think they intentionally broke some equipment to help sell that story. Awful rolled in after I clocked out, but I'm told Regional dude was still there doing Awful's job. Awful was unbearable for the next couple of days, but I had a foot out the door. Jenny, it turned out, simply didn't care because she'd been doing the work of a head cashier without the pay. It took a few weeks for the fallout to happen, and you bet I kept in touch with Jenny to find out. From this point, I only know what Jenny told me as I was back in college a few states away. A few weeks later, an audit team from National came down to investigate. The mystery shopper story hadn't lined up with the computer outage story, and something was obviously hinky. They dug into the books and found all the labor violations for minors working overtime and too early or late. Interviewed the employees and found out about the scheduling during school time problems. Manager absenteeism, no vacation being allowed, also that the store was constantly short-staffed. No crap. People ran for the hills as soon as they got anything else. Finally, that an assistant manager was on payroll full-time, but nobody had ever seen her work. She clocked in and out within seconds of AM every shift he worked. but was never there. Them dots ain't hard to connect. I don't know if they covered up all the labor violations or not. Probably. That would have caused massive fines. I was too young to know to report them. However awful, his father and his mistress all got fired or resigned quietly. The store reportedly went back to being pretty functional after that. Jenny got a better job and left within the year. I never worked retail again. And this is why stores have mystery shoppers. Sometimes there's too much going on for the business owners to know every single detail of what's happening or not happening in a store. And you just need that third-party objective to really take a look. I've never done mystery shopping myself, but I once went along with a friend. It's pretty cool. I think it's about as close to becoming an undercover spy as you possibly can. Unfortunately, as we can see in the story, the staff are usually looking out for it, and they know exactly how to spot you. This story was called, "I Don't Care If the Dragon Is Broken, Turn It Back On." I came all the way from Calgary for this. Okay, some backstory about this dragon. In West Edmonton Mall, around the 80s, they built this dragon that spits real fire. You read that right, real fire. So this had been a tourist spot for years on end. People from all over different provinces come to see it. Okay, fast forward to 2006. The thing kept breaking down, so the theater would get it fixed. But again, it would break down, and it would cost so much just to fix it. So when it did work, it would be so annoying. Since every 20 minutes, the thing would turn on and spurt fire and have these sounds come out. At first it was cool, but working underneath the thing, man, it would get annoying real quick. So they stopped fixing it. People would come, complain, cycle continues. So I'm on the floor sweeping the lobby, minding my own business, when somebody taps me on the shoulder. I turn around and see a family of 3 who are not happy.
Hey, when does the dragon go off?
It doesn't, it's broken.
Since when?
3 years now.
Stop lying. Go up there and push the button and start the dragon.
Yeah, start the dragon. I want fire.
Yes, give my kid fire.
I can't, ma'am.
And why not?
There is no button.
Oh, ha ha, funny guy. Go turn it on.
Again, sir, I can't.
Yes, you can.
No, I really can't. The dragon's been broken for 3 years. It takes millions to fix it, and it keeps breaking down.
I don't care. We drove all the way from Calgary for this. Let me speak to your manager.
I radio my manager. My soup comes walking towards us. What can I help you with?
Yeah, you can turn on the dragon for my kid.
Sir, the dragon's been broken for 3 years. We can't.
How dare you? My kid was looking forward to this. We drove from Calgary. For goodness sakes, just turn on the darn button.
There is no button? Frankly, I don't know how it works. I'm not the one who created the thing.
Isn't it on a timer?
Yeah, it was.
Then go to the timer and figure it out.
Sir, the timer broke 3 years ago. Can I continue sweeping? Yes, go.
Oh no, he stays right here. I want your name and his name. I'm calling corporate. We will be reimbursed for this since we came all the way from Calgary.
You can call them, but they can't do anything.
Oh, they can touch the button on their side.
Yeah, their side. Here's the number. The parents get the number and then go off to call corporate. Who knows how much corporate laughed that day. You can't fault the family for being upset that they drove all that way and it wasn't working. I mean, if you haven't seen it for years and you haven't heard any news that it was broken, you might think, oh, it'd be fun to have a drive and show our kid the dragon that spits fire. I mean, it's a dragon that spits fire. Yeah, that's worth a long drive. The thing that you can blame them for is the fact that those workers aren't equipped to fix the dragon. They can't just push a button and make it work. And like they said, it was going to cost millions to fix. If it doesn't do anything apart from being an attraction, then there's no real reason for them to actually fork out and pay the money to fix it, so you can understand why they didn't. So can they be frustrated that it's broken? Yeah, for sure. Especially if you had a long drive. Compensated for your trip? Blaming the workers who have literally no ability to fix it? Us Voicey veterans won't stand for that. If you'd like your story to be narrated by me, don't forget to visit the subreddit r/VoiceyHere, link below. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe if you'd like to see more. Alright, I'll see you in the next one.